Welcome to Second Take, the show that takes a look at the issues behind the news. Martin Creamer joins me in studio today to discuss the developments at this year's Junior Indaba, where various speakers discussed the furthering of the sector. Hi Martin.
Hi Tracy.
One of the speakers was Sibanye CEO, Neil Froneman, and he said that there was a positive wind of change that was blowing through government. What led to this statement?
You know, there was a lot of talk around Africa and which were the best countries to do exploration in, and you know, South Africa's name wasn't coming up in that. With the junior miners, they claim that the regulatory environment in Botswana is much better than here. In other parts of Africa, they get more encouragement from government and they get more encouragement from the legislative framework than they do in South Africa, and there's a lot of red tape here and there's a lot of uncertainty here. So against that background, people were questioning the Sibanye organization on when it's going to get transfer of those platinum mines from Anglo-American, suggesting perhaps Section 11, which involves the transfer of ownership from one company to the other, is delayed quite a long time, that it should have been through already. And it was against that sort of background that he was receiving some questioning. And that's when he came up with this idea and these comments that the winds of change are blowing through. He can feel them and they're positive, and he's more positive than he has been in the past, which was a great thing because of course there have been statements about the winds of change in decades past about Africa, and this normally indicates a new era coming in, a better era. So that was trying to, I think, counter some of the negativity that was being expressed in quite large quantities at the Junior Indaba, where there's a sort of a lack of belief that the government will introduce the correct legislative frameworks, because we've had so many dates given, so many timetables changed, so many ministers giving commitments, those ministers no longer being in position, new ministers coming in giving new commitments. People are looking at the commitments they give and sort of think, are they also going to not meet these? Will they still be there? So it's all that sort of huge uncertainty. Against that background, we had Neil Froneman, who's investing 8 billion, I think, in new platinum mines, saying no, he's feeling the winds of change and they're positive. And it was quite a nice atmosphere to set against the background of incredulity.
And backing his sentiment, the Deputy Minister of Mineral Resources, Godfrey Oliphant, came out and said that he was looking to develop a MIG debt for the junior mining sector. What spurred this statement?
What is spurring the statement is the lack of investment in exploration. We had one Minister of Finance saying he was going to have something introduced in South Africa that was going to be better than the Canadian flow-through scheme. Well, it was so bad that nobody took it up. I mean, it was parsimonious in the extreme. We go to Toronto and we look at those big buildings there, and when you say to a Canadian, gee, where do you get the wealth for all this? They all say, from mining. And it's all because of the way they boost exploration. And the exploration involves everybody, even the taxi driver, because he can get a write-off on his tax because people are investing in drilling in the ground, taking huge risk. Now, that sort of risk-taking is not happening in South Africa because it really sometimes doesn't bring any reward, all this exploration. So you have to have people who are quite good investors, angel-type investors, to back you, to go and say, well, I'm going to look for manganese in this spot and I'm going to drill some holes. And then you come back and tell them, well, you didn't find anything. And all that money goes down the drain. So it's a high-risk thing. And the way the Canadians have got around it is to tie the whole nation in to the risk and reward ratio. And obviously, if the geologists do their work well, the reward will be there and there'll be less risk. And Godfrey Oliphant came with a new spirit, saying we must have a MIG debt for junior miners. We're having no exploration. If we don't have any exploration, that's the end of mining. So we've got to really get in and incentivize this. And he was quite encouraging, and I found him in quite an animated mood, which was excellent. And the MIG debt, of course, is unique to South Africa because it involves government, labour and business, where you can create an atmosphere for getting things done. And it was created during the headwinds of 2008 by the big companies, when the Labour was saying, please don't lay all of us off, and they were saying, but we've got no income because the prices are down. They got together and discussed how they could help one another. And so this is stuck now, and they want to introduce it to the junior mining space, which really means junior explorers, which means explorers, prospectors. And hopefully they can do something good. People afterwards said, no, look, the better way is to get like 12 people in a room who are keen on doing some exploration and explain to them how all of this works, and perhaps you're going to get more out of it than having a big legislative government, business, Labour, maybe at each other's throats, But at least the urgency is being created. And if we can bring the whole nation behind us, it'll be better, because that's what the Canadians have done. Hopefully they will come up with an incentivization scheme. The Minister of Finance at the time said he was going to give us something better. He didn't. Even the Australians are now going for the Canadian scheme. So it seems that, warts and all, that one is the best. It's been known to work. So why we don't adopt it, I think, is best known to the Treasury. I think in this case, our Treasury has been very reluctant for some reason. And when you speak to them, they tell you, no, we've got that other scheme. Don't you know about that other scheme? And then you look at the names of the people who've taken that up. No one of them mining. So, there's been a whole lot of unintended consequences with the way they've smartly tried to be very stingy. And it just hasn't worked. And it would be better to go for something that has worked elsewhere, as we can see the Australians are even doing. The Australians are going in a big exploration push. We're doing nothing. We are a mining destination here. That'll mean the death of your mining industry, because there's nothing to replace what's being taken out of the ground all the time, especially in new areas. Companies are quite prepared to drill around their operations, low risk, but not go into the frontier.
But then subsequent speakers said that more had to be done by government to drive exploration. How so? Well,
they've got to give some sort of incentive to encourage people to put a lot of money into something where you can lose your boots. And if they draw everybody in through a tax incentive that people can benefit from, even though they're not in mining, it's because they're investing in that company, they're betting on that company, the benefit from tax flows through to them. And it becomes a way of getting the private sector to bet on success of these explorers. And we see how wonderful it's been for the Canadians. I mean, thousands of people go to the Prospectors Conference in Canada every year. It is great for, the tourism gets boosted. People go there. They not only go to the conference, they go around the country. They maybe slip up and down on boats along the coast, and they do all sorts of things. So, you can add a lot of value if you do things in a way that encourage people to find out what is in the ground in a way that doesn't mean they're going to lose their granny's money, sort of thing. It's not such high risk. They take some of the risk out of it. And that is what one got the sense that quite an upbeat Godfrey Oliphant was trying to put across.
But people also mentioned digitization.
Yes, digitization is needed. I mean, we were all called, journalists were all called to Pretoria saying, we're digitizing our cadastre. Now, the cadastre is your list of all your licenses and the rights and the available properties to explore. And we were all very excited. This was a homegrown thing that the department didn't quite explain how they developed it. But it's been an absolute disaster. It's a nightmare to try and negotiate this thing. Whereas, you should be able to sit in New York and find out what's available very easily on your desktop. And with us, it's you just give up. It seems like they don't want you to know anything. Whereas a South African company, Spatial Dimensions, has actually created a cadastre that everybody in the world's buying, except the South Africans. Now, I mean, it's just crazy. And you can see that Cameroon has got it, Ivory Coast has got it, Mozambique has got it, 20 countries have got it. You can even pay for your license fees by SMS now. It makes things so simple. And who has enabled all that? South Africans, Bill Feast and his team. But this prophet isn't recognised at home. When he goes to the department, they turn their back on him, saying, no, we've got this scheme, SAMRAD, a disaster. Now, unless you've got that visibility of what is available, and you don't have to have coffee with someone out of the department, as people were saying. We've got to, you apply for a license for an area and say, oh, we'll meet you in a cafe in Mpumalanga, and then you sort of get the suggestion that perhaps they're looking for something. It's disastrous. And we know that in the past we had a Deputy Director General of Mineral Resources who used to take applications for licenses, for mining licenses and prospecting licenses, and put them in his bottom drawer. He wasn't even a South African, born anyway. And he used to do this. And people used to say, but what's happening to my application? No, we're still processing it. And it was a way of saying, you're not going to get this. And those people never got it. And what he did is he kept those for a selected few. And if you go to the Northern Cape now and look at the manganese industry, it is decimated because of what was done. You cannot just allow people to come in left, right and centre into a manganese business because it's at the top of the cycle. They all then create new mines. When it hits rock bottom, you find that the big ones even have to stop. Because even though they had the best resources with a nice margin, they've got to stop producing because all these little ones are in there and they're just giving the stuff away, even if it's like paper thin profit margins. One of the big companies in Northern Cape said they would even build a city there. I can remember trying to say to them, look, we've got the best assets. We've got the biggest margins. We can go. Even if the manganese price falls below $4 a ton, $4 or whatever the measurement is, we can still carry on. Even if the cycles are tough, you'll still be getting tax. No, this fella put these things in the bottom drawer because he didn't want the bigger ones to get any more licenses. And as it stands, that industry's been decimated. So that's what can happen if you fool around with what should be a transparent system. You should be able to get to your desk, get onto your internet and find out who's got what. We've been asking the department, please tell us who's got what. They don't want to tell you. And then you find out that more than one person has got certain claims. So is that why they don't want us to know? Is it so badly managed that there's duplication? Could there be triplication? Who knows? This is like a dark age that they keep us in under the pretext of it being digitized. And that's what's got to change.
And then the African Union Commission chairperson, Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, has said that more needs to be done by the private sector in Africa. Could you elaborate on what she said?
She was very impressive. I found her very, very impressive. She came to this, the people at the Junior, they look more to Africa than they do to South Africa because they've given up on South Africa. They just can't get to first base. So they go to other countries in Africa, and having the head of the African Union Commission there, and Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma was quite a big ticket item. And, she spoke to journalists in media conferences, and she was saying that, we've got to let mining reach its destiny in Africa, because here we've got mineral-rich continent, but poor people. And can we not have a win-win by doing this properly so that you can also add value? She's very keen on beneficiation. Hopefully there'll be a business case for that beneficiation. If there's not, they need to have some incentives. But there's no doubt the whole of Africa is saying the same thing. We don't want you to pull this ore out of the ground and get it off onto the ship as fast as you can, because that is colonialism as far as we're concerned. We want to be involved in that and take that and process that and do something with it. But of course there has to be a business case. But they can make a business case with some incentives. They seem intent to do it. Now she's saying that, the 54 nations of Africa should be working together on this. There is a document that has been signed, a 50-year vision, but journalists were putting it to her that not so easy to do this in Africa. The Chinese did it, and they got urbanization, and from that urbanization came a huge demand for metals and minerals and mining, also agricultural products, all the rest. And they're hoping to twin with a lot of agriculture. But that's a command economy. They can sit in the center and say, we're going to do that. And it happens throughout China. Whereas you can't do that in Africa. You've got a patchwork of 54 different countries. They're not working together. Who's going to champion that? So, journalists put it to her, is this urbanization, which, we encouraged with, we hear the word urbanization, it means there's going to be demand for mining products because you're going to have cars, you're going to have, all sorts of things that demand steel and iron ore, and you're going to have people urbanizing, which means that they use metals and minerals in a great extent, and we saw what it did in China. Are you going to have a repeat of that, or is African urbanization without proper education and without skills backing, will it just be a spread of informal settlements? In which case, is there going to be a demand? Or will it just be urbanization of a different form? Now, she's saying that, there are so few educational facilities for mining engineers in Africa. And she would like to see that change so that at least you can start building up the skills for mining and build up the skills for agriculture, because she's saying we've got more arable land there, we've got water, we've got everything you need to be the food basket, but you haven't got the skills. So you need education, you need the universities bringing people out. So it's going to not be a short-term thing. And she's saying there are too few of these, because if you've got the skills and you're putting people into the right positions, that urbanization will have a slum element. I mean, there were the slums of London, Great Fire of London, all their slums burnt down because that's how big cities build. But you will start having a normalization, and that can then be a driver of demand for metals and minerals of Africa. But what she laments is that Africa is minerals rich, but people poor. And she wants to change that by involving the private sector, involving them in good legislative frameworks so that everybody can benefit, that it's a win-win-win for Africa. That's what she's striving for. And hopefully she'll be able to do it.
Thanks, Martin.
It's a great pleasure, Tracy.
That's it for this week. Join us again next time for more news analysis.